Hello there. Welcome to this course introduction to course number 20480, which is actually on programming with HTML5, with JavaScript and CSS3. My name is Gerald Hoong, right, and I'm happy to introduce you guys to this course about programming with HTML5, with JavaScript and CSS3. Now, let's take a look at what we have in store for you for this official course by Microsoft. 20480 is actually the introduction to the track for programming with web applications. Typically, if you find yourself as a web developer or even a web designer, and if you intend to take the roadmap, the path to become an ASP.NET or an ASP.NET MVC4 developer, this would be the course for you to start with. Now, this particular course, it's 5 days, right? Monday to Friday, right? And typically what we're going to look into is that we're going to have 14 modules in 5 days. Now, let me just introduce you guys to module number 1. Now, as usual, in every Microsoft course, right, module 1 would definitely be an introduction to what is going to be the basic of HTML5 as well as CSS3. Now, of course, before you step into the new HTML5 and CSS3, you need to know what is HTML and CSS standards. So in this module 1, overview of HTML and CSS, you will learn about the basics of coding in HTML as well as the standards of CSS. Now, after that, which in module 2, you'll learn about how to start creating simple HTML pages as well as applying simple styles. This is considered very basic, fundamental. And then module 3, typically it's an introduction to JavaScript. Now, if you guys are an avid web developer, you know these are all internet standards for you to create web pages. So after you've learned HTML and after you learn about a little bit of CSS styles, you will definitely need to understand JavaScript. So the basic programming syntax of JavaScript, such as variables, and the constructs of JavaScript, that will be covered all in this module 3. But of course, the advanced portion will be covered later. Then in module 4, you will be learning how to create forms. Now, this is whereby it starts to get a bit more challenging. Typically, this will be day number 2. So creating forms to collect and validate user input. Now, when you design your web page, definitely you will learn how to create a form whereby it is definitely for users to input all the information. So you need to learn how to validate all the inputs before sending them and storing them in a database. Then in module 5, you will learn how to communicate with the remote server. Now, ultimately, you need to learn how to actually send, right, an HTTP GET request, or how the server is going to respond back with an HTTP response, as well as you learn a different type of HTTP, not just GET, but even HTTP POST, HTTP PUT, as well as HTTP DELETE. Then moving on to module 6. Now module 6, right, you'll learn how to continue to style more of your HTML5 pages with the actual CSS3 implementation. So module 6, fully focused on CSS3 standards. Now module 7, right, proceeding to that, you'll learn a little bit of the object-oriented programming covered by JavaScript. So in module 7, you'll learn how to create objects and methods by using JavaScript. Which ultimately, continuing to that, right, you need to understand something in module 8 where you'll learn how to create interactive pages by using HTML5 APIs. Now ultimately, HTML5 itself provides you with some helpers, and there are a lot of APIs, some helper APIs that allows you to give more exciting interactive features covered in HTML5. So next, right now, we're going to move to module 9. Now, module 9, you'll learn how to add offline support to your web applications. Now, certain offline support, what we mean by offline support is to learn about the caching, right, as well as some of those session data that you would like to navigate from one page where you store them and then read them or forward them to another page. So some of the interfaces provided by the HTML5 standards are also covered in this Module 9. Now moving on to Module 10. Module 10, right, you'll learn how to implement an adaptive UI. So UI, obviously it means user interface. So you will learn about how HTML5 right now can practically, dynamically adapt to different form factors. Now adaptive UI thoroughly means, as you know today, web standards, right, okay, you may not be browsing the web pages solely from your desktop or your laptop. Typically today there are more users, right, on mobile environment such as smartphones or even tablets. Now with smartphones and tablets, obviously the form factor, the platform, the device width and height, it's different from the desktop version. So ultimately, adaptive UI means you write once, you create one time only the pages, but it automatically uses the CSS queries in the background to target different medias. So ultimately you can set what is the default or minimum width and height of a page, which you target for the desktop. At the same time, you can automatically switch to a different platform or form factor using just the CSS media queries. Then Module 11 and Module 12, typically they are covered back to back because they are all related to graphics. Now Module 11 is creating advanced graphics, learning about the objects, that combination of HTML5 object, what we call the SVG object, scalable vector graphics, right, in combination with the CSS elements or styles that you can apply to those objects, which will also be continued to Module 12, learning about how to animate those user interfaces. Now animation sometimes can be called directly from JavaScript. Now ultimately this is in coordination with whatever that you control, such as storyboards as well as those effects that you can apply through your CSS3. Then Module 13 and Module 14, the last day typically, the last two modules. Module 13, we're going to look at how do we implement RTC, real-time communications by using WebSockets. So WebSockets is actually a separate library that you can add through NuGet inside your Visual Studio in order for it to help you send messages and also grab messages or so-called the response through the WebSockets library. And of course, the last module, Module 14, you're going to learn how to perform background processes. Now in HTML5, part of JavaScript actually, there is an object called web workers. Now there are two types of workers, either a dedicated worker or a shared worker. Now this particular module focuses more towards the dedicated worker, whereby each web worker is a background thread assigned to run a long-running process, a time-consuming process that is required by a certain page. Now you dedicate each one page to have their own web worker, whereas a shared worker, well, it is shared among multiple pages. So there you go, 14 modules in 5 days for this course number 20480. Now I would propose you guys to really take this course before you proceed through your web development adventures in ASP.NET. So I hope to see you guys in this course. Thank you very much.